there's one verse in particular that I believe should give us all hope. There's one verse in particular I would like to dissect and to move into today, if just for a moment, to give us a little bit of encouragement. This is found in Philippians 4, verse 4. And to give a little bit of context of why Paul is writing this, because I just find it fascinating, that the history of what is behind these verses. When Paul was writing this, he was in prison in Rome. He had just been beaten, tortured consistently, deprived of food, sitting in a dungeon, surrounded by prisoners and surrounded, quite frankly, and don't want to get too graphic for you, but there were no bathrooms in that dungeon, so the smell would have been absolutely horrid. The conditions were absolutely ridiculous. But even then, he instructs the church in Philippi to rejoice in the Lord always. And he thought it was so important that he said that. He said it again. And again I say, rejoice. When you go back and you look at the word rejoice, and you go back into that original Greek that it was written in, I find it so awesome of what it means. And all it means is choose joy again. Because Paul had this understanding of what joy is. Joy is not the same as happiness. Happiness is a feeling of pleasant emotion because things are going your way at a particular time of your life. Something is pleasant going on around you, therefore you are happy that that is happening. But joy is deeper. Joy is peace that surpasses all understanding. It is contentment exactly where you are. That is why he was able to find joy in that prison cell. That is why he was able to find peace in that prison cell. Because he knew, no matter what situation that he was in, no matter what circumstance surrounded him, the peace of the Lord could follow him there. The peace that truly surpasses all understanding. Contentment in just understanding that he is secure in identity, secure as Son of God, knowing that he is going to heaven no matter what he goes through. If he were to die that night, he would say, rejoice, I'm home. And no matter what pleasant surroundings would be waiting for him back at earth, once you're there, you would never want to come back. Once you get a taste of that beauty, of that glory, of being face to face with Jesus, why would you want to come back? But that's the greater context of joy. It's not just this feeling of content. It's not just happiness. Yeah, you can be happy in your joy. That's awesome. But the real test of your joy is when hardship comes. The real test of your joy is making sure that your joy influences your circumstance instead of your circumstance influencing your joy. But we'll get more into that in a second. There's one more story in Scripture that I'd like to dive into a little bit more. This is found in Acts chapter 16, verses 25 through 30. And again, Paul is, every town he goes into, he just gets beaten and arrested. It's every single one. I feel so bad for him. But at this point, about the midnight hour, Paul and his companion Silas were praying and singing hymns to God. And all the other prisoners were listening to them. Suddenly, there was such a violent earthquake that the foundations of the prison were shaken. And at once all the prison doors flew open, and everyone's chains came off. Rather than allowing their situation to influence their reaction to that, rather than just saying, well, I'm in prison, it's midnight, I'm tired, I'm just going to try to go to sleep, and it's going to be better in the morning, hopefully. They were proactive, and they decided to let their joy infect what was going on around them. They decided to turn their attention to God, to focus on the source of their peace, the source of their joy. And they started praising. They started worshiping. And that completely turned the situation that was around them. Rather than allowing the prison to infect and to diminish and to suppress their praise and their joy, their response to the goodness of God, they allowed their response to the goodness of God infect their situation to the point where every single prisoner that was around them were also freed. Chances are, though, those prisoners actually deserved to be there. But they were still freed. That's grace, but we don't have enough time to go into that this morning. That's undeserved. You didn't earn it. You don't deserve it. It's just grace in abundance and freedom. But they allowed their joy to infect. They allowed their worship to bubble up and to penetrate everything that was around them. And then their lives and everyone's lives that was around them was miraculously changed. Even the prison guard, he ran down later on, if you were to read the rest of the story, he ran in, saw that all the prison doors were open, all the chains were off. He was ready to take his own life because the punishment for allowing prisoners to escape under Roman law was the death penalty. So he was ready to end it because he thought, no, I'm done. I'm at least going to make it look like they overpowered me so that my family's safe. But before he did, Paul said, don't hurt yourself. We're all here. He then took Paul and Silas over to his house, cleaned their wounds because they had just been beaten, badly beaten. And that family was saved that day. They received Jesus. And they also received that light. They received that joy. See, this joy isn't just for us to enjoy for ourselves. Just like this skit that the kids did, which was so amazing. We have the light of the world in us. Christianity should really be like a virus. It should be so contagious that way every person that you come in contact with should have some type of an encounter with you to where they just go, there's something different about that person. And right now, as far as my crew on Sundays, one series that we've been going into for the past few weeks is, what answer do you have prepared? Are you ready to receive that question of what's different about you? Why do you believe in God? Because that's what we're instructed to. Paul instructed us to have an answer prepared. Are you ready to share your story? A couple weeks ago, I had a young man direct message me on Instagram. I don't know him. I wish I did. But he messaged me a couple weeks ago on Instagram and was going through a really hard time, and he was asking, I don't know you, you don't know me, but why do you believe in God? And so I just used the opportunity to just tell my story. Just give him an example of something that I've encountered in my life that's changed my life. That is one of the reasons why I believe. Because here's the great thing, nobody can argue that. No one can argue your testimony. No one can say, well, you weren't a drug addict, and you're not been sober and clean for 10 years, and your life hasn't completely changed. Yes, it has. They can't refute your story. Live your life as a living epistle. That is what we are commanded to do. That's how we make this infectious. That's how we make this contagious, is that we exude and we just radiate the love of God to such an extreme that people have to recognize that something's different. That's how we change our workplace. That's how we change our schools. That's how we change this city. Because I know one thing, I'm tired of churches just competing over the same people. We have enough churches in this country where, we don't have enough churches in this country to house the number of people that are actually in this country. We have enough lost people in this city to go after. We don't have to worry about anybody else that goes anywhere else. I would much rather spend our time partnering with different places and saying, you know what, we need help pulling off this event. Let's get a coalition going on with several different places. Let's make this happen. Let's go after souls. There's another thing. We're going to have to, I just wish we'd just rally around Jesus. That's just me, though. But I want to get back to that original idea, and I'll close. I wonder what it would look like if joy came to this house. That's right. Mm-hmm. What would it look like if we actually had so much joy that we were to dance like these little kids? I wonder what that would do. I wonder what kind of reviving would take place. I wonder if we found joy again in our faith. I wonder how many people would be healed because God's presence could rest in here. I wonder how many deaf ears could be opened, how many blinded eyes could be opened, how many people in wheelchairs. I pray for a day where we don't need these handicap parking places. That's just been on my mind. Why in the world does a church need handicap parking? Yeah, that's true. This was a Baptist church before. But I wonder what that would look like. Here's what I believe it looks like. I believe it looks like families being healed. I believe it looks like friendships being molded and created that are so much more intimate and so much more personal than ever before. I believe it's us coming together as a family. And as we do that, as we love the Lord our God with all of our heart, with all of our soul, with all of our mind, and we love each other like we love ourselves. If we actually were to obey the only two laws that were given in the New Testament by Jesus, how many lives could be saved?